What's up, everyone? Welcome to your Week 12 waiver wire show. Did you know that the Rams running backs face
Stink. They stink.
That's true. But in their next 6 games, they face 5 teams that rank 22nd or worse against running backs. And in their next 3 games, all 3 teams are bottom 6 in receiving yards allowed to running backs. Great matchups, bad players. Did you know that Samaje Perine has had 9 to 13 carries in 8 games with the Bengals? And in those 8 games, he is averaging 16 PPR fantasy points per game. That is more than Dalvin Cook is averaging this year. And did you know that everyone is injured? And we welcome you a crazy injury report this week. Welcome to the show. Jamie, on a scale of to, how would you rate this week's waiver wire?
I don't know which end of the spectrum is better. I would rate it as 8.5.
So that's a more of the okay. If you notice, Jamie's mic having a bit of an issue with Jamie's mic today. We're gonna push through it. So sorry about that, everybody. But it's fine. The information is what matters. Before we get to all the big news, guys, post game yesterday. You hate to see it decided on a penalty. Come on, USA. You got to be better than that. No need to commit that penalty. I'm a little sick today. I have World Cup fever. I apologize. I'm very into it. But last night's game was a big
Wait a minute.
We'll talk about it.
Is that why you were not able to go on HQ on Monday?
Oh, that was earlier in the day, I promise.
Were you too hyped up for soccer that you didn't want to bother joining Jamie and Heath?
I only watched USA. I don't, not the other stuff. I don't mess around with the other stuff. All right. So the news we're tracking: Justin Fields. Matt Eberflus didn't even rule him out. Didn't even rule out him missing the season. That's how vague the injury is right now for Fields. Joe Mixon, concussion. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, ankle. Leonard Fournette, we're hoping he comes back. The Denver running back situation with Melvin Gordon released and Chase Edmonds out for several weeks. Mike Williams, ankle. Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts among the injuries. Let's get to the top waiver wire priorities. Jamie, what's it look like? Who are the top priorities this week?
I have it as Latavius Murray, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Samaje Perine as the top 3 guys.
Latavius Murray, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Samaje Perine. Dave, what say you?
Latavius Murray is at the top. He's the best rest of season player that you can add. I will take Perine next over Peoples-Jones. And Peoples-Jones is only out there in about a third of CBS leagues anyway. But it's the same top 3, just Bengal over Brown.
Okay. So this top 3 is Murray, Peoples-Jones, and Perine. Also, Dave pointed out to me that Isaiah Pacheco is 64% rostered in Yahoo leagues and 44% rostered in ESPN leagues. And he's,
do you know what our waiver wire stuff would look like if we were on different format, different site?
Oh yeah,
you would have to team up with somebody to write it. It would have so many players on.
Well, it's I generally check other waiver wire columns, and it just amazes me, like some of the players that other people get to write about. Like, yeah, you're telling me I have to recommend Richie James when people are saying, hey, go out and add Mike Evans. He's available. He was dropped in the 5 weeks.
Yeah. Well, who would you rather have, Latavius Murray or Isaiah Pacheco?
I would rather have Isaiah Pacheco.
Same.
Okay, because Pacheco has, 3 catches this year? And over the last 2 games, Murray and Gordon have combined for, I believe, 16 catches. So you do get that little benefit there.
It wouldn't surprise me if Murray's better. But in terms of who I think has more upside, I think it's Pacheco has more upside.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the deal? Oh, Mike Boone could be back soon. Could return
one more game.
13. So
he will come back and he will break our hearts yet again, because that's what that guy does. Stinker Mike Boone. And yes, I'm still bitter over 2019 or whenever it was, 2020.
All right, so we'll get into it. No teams on bye this week, but you might want to start planning ahead for week 13 when 6 teams are on a bye. And if you need to plan ahead, there's a Beat the Waiver Wire episode on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Fantasy Football Today in 5 is awesome. Chris Towers hosts it. It's about 5 to 7 minutes every morning of great fantasy advice. So please check out Fantasy Football Today in 5 anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube, and we are going to give away a month subscription to Paramount Plus. So, get in on that. We have 32 likes right now. Now we have 33 because Adam hit it. And we also have fun polls. next coach to be fired. Thomas Schaefer, great YouTube polls. Nathaniel Hackett, Josh McDaniels, Cliff Kingsbury, or Lovie Smith. This is a tough one. Who's the next coach to be fired? Hackett, McDaniels, Kingsbury, or Smith?
Hackett
for sure.
In season, first year guy. I don't know.
I don't know if he gets fired. I don't know if any of these guys get fired in season.
Yep.
But I mean, Hackett, just an unfortunate situation where he's been bad with a new ownership group, so it does not bode well for him.
Week 18, he walks off the field. He goes in the locker room. Maybe before he takes off his shoes, somebody comes in and puts an axe on him.
I voted for Kingsbury because I think he's the only one who gets fired in season. If he gets, I don't think he will.
That's a weird one though, because he got a contract extension. So.
Yeah.
Well, but Hackett is probably a multi-year contract, right? I mean,
he does.
But again,
it is.
These aren't the guys who hired him.
It's also his first contract, whereas Kingsbury's on his second.
Sure.
So he's getting paid more.
It's not really, boy, the Cardinals are so injured. We'll talk about, so injured. Key players everywhere, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, news and notes. I hope you have 45 minutes, everybody. So Justin Fields is day-to-day with a shoulder injury, but he might be week to week. He's probably not going to play this week. And and like I said, Eberflus was asked if he's out, if he could miss the season, and he didn't rule that out. So we're hoping for the best. What do you think happens if Trevor Siemian comes in? I have some stats, but Dave, the impact on the Bears offense if Siemian takes over.
Oh, well, they're just going to take off and become a fantastic offense, the likes of which we haven't seen in our lifetime. It's going to be ugly. They'll throw a little bit more. They might trust Siemian to throw a little bit more, but there are accuracy issues. There are deep ball issues with him. He's a serviceable backup quarterback. You're not going to feel great starting any Bears players other than Montgomery.
I mean, he's 100% going to throw for more yards than Justin Fields.
I hope so.
Oh, he could.
Yeah, I think it's actually a benefit for the receivers.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He could be good for Mooney. He could be good for Kmet. And last year in 4 starts with the Saints, a running back had 7 or more targets in every game. And that was Kamara once, Mark Ingram twice, and Ty Montgomery once. So they had bad receivers, but that's another factor here. So it's interesting. Obviously, he won't be as good for fantasy as Fields, but he might, Jamie, he might be good for the other guys on the team.
Yeah, I have Claypool in the drop list because he's been so bad with the Bears, but he's I think easy to move on from until you see something from him. But I think for Mooney and for Kmet and for Montgomery, I think it might be a benefit because it's not just the more yards, it just be more available targets. So that the hope would be it leads to more yards because Fields is going to take off and run. I mean, that's the strength of his game. Simeon's going to stand back there and get pummeled. That's the strength of his game, So I think we'll see, more opportunities for those guys, despite the inept performances that he'll give you. So, that would be, it's almost like to a poor man's degree. Think about how Mooney performed last year with Andy Dalton. He was much better with Andy Dalton than he was with Justin Fields. So, there's going to be more throws in his direction. I got to feel like I got to see it to believe it. If his best quality is that he's a crash test dummy, then I'm not feeling Trevor Siemian. 59% completion rate over his career, 6.3 air yards per attempt over his career. I don't feel good about starting. No, he's going to throw the ball probably 40 times.
Justin Fields
he might throw the ball 40 times, but he might only complete 24, 25 passes. That would be more than Justin Fields.
I mean, Justin Fields is averaging 150 passing yards per game. 150 passing yards per game. It's terrible for everyone involved.
Okay. So Siemian has averaged 201 passing yards per game over his career. So it's an extra 50 more yards per game.
He'll be more, but if you look at that, there's a lot of games where he partially played. Because he comes in. It's true, it's honestly true. I did all the numbers this morning. He gave us 2,000-yard receivers one year in Denver. Demarius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but you can't get any worse than Justin Fields this year from a passing perspective, just because they have the worst passing offense in football. Not the worst. They have the lowest passing offense, passing yards per game. Okay, I'm not saying that Fields is bad. I'm saying they don't throw enough and they don't throw for a lot of yards. That's all I'm saying, Dave. Like he will be better in that regard.
I am excited to watch their offense with Trevor Siemian.
But it's not about that, though. It's just about what he can do for those receivers, which will be better.
He's going to be amazing for them. You're right. The key to unlocking Darnell Mooney is going to be Trevor Siemian throwing 35 times.
My takeaway was don't drop Mooney or Kmet.
No, absolutely.
Oh, no one's doing that anyway, though.
Well, I think you could make an argument to drop Mooney for Peoples-Jones. You might do that anyway.
Yes, that's true.
Drop, Kmet. That's very streamable, based on what just happened. All right. We got a lot of show left. Other quarterback news. Matthew Stafford's got the concussion. The Jets could make a quarterback change, and we think it would be Mike White.
No. It's hard to figure. I mean, everything from the media suggests Joe Flacco. The depth chart says Mike White right now. So I would imagine if they're trying to make a playoff push, it's Joe Flacco.
Okay. What else? Kyler Murray may not play this week. He may not play until after the bye week, which is next week. And the Panthers have not decided on a quarterback yet. They have Denver, and then they have a bye. The running back news: Joe Mixon, concussion. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, ankle. How long do we think he'll be out?
High ankle sprain, so you probably assume 4 weeks.
Okay. Leonard Fournette, are you guys ranking him at this point, expecting him at this point?
The reports prior to the bye week where he was going to return after the bye. So, yes.
Okay.
And is it possible that the Chiefs put Clyde on IR and then forget about him like they did in 2 games ago when he only played 4 snaps?
Wouldn't be surprising.
Leonard Fournette has a hip injury. Sorry. I don't know why I read that. Darrell Henderson. I'm Ron Burgundy. Darrell Henderson was injured. He was dealing with a knee injury before the game, and then he started, and then he left. So that is why he had such little work. The Ravens hoping to get Gus Edwards back this week. Jalen Warren injured. Chase Edmonds going to miss multiple weeks with an ankle injury, and Denver released Melvin Gordon. So that's why Latavius Murray is the number 1 priority this week. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp likely out 6 to 8 weeks. Mike Williams re-aggravated the ankle. Rondale Moore left immediately early in the first quarter after a carry. He had 1 carry in the game. He left
drive.
Groin injury. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Dortch had a big game, and Dortch has been big, and he's given you a good game every time Rondale Moore hasn't played.
Yep.
Now,
he's worth adding. He's out there in every league pretty much.
You got the Marquise Brown situation, though, too, because George has never played with both Brown. Well, nobody has. Both Brown and Hopkins at the same time, and that might be as early as this week. Jamar Chase has a chance to play this week. Justin Jefferson playing through turf toe. He's got a Thursday game. Jamison Williams is eligible to return, so he's on the priority list as well. Wan'Dale Robinson tore his ACL. That stinks. Kadarius Toney left with a hamstring injury, and Baltimore hoping to get Deshaun Jackson back. Kyle Pitts is on IR with a torn MCL. Jamie, what's the impact here of Pitts missing perhaps the rest of the season, but at least the next 4 games?
I would hope it's more targets for Drake London. That would be the biggest benefit to come out of this because, as you have noted, the 3 games prior to week 11, Pitts had 24 targets over that span. So hopefully those go to Drake London, who has not exceeded 40 yards receiving since week 3. He has a touchdown each of his last 2 games, but clearly he's been limited by this offense. So that would be the biggest boost. There's not a tight end on the roster that you could look at and say, okay, that's the guy I have to have. The other receivers are just guys. So this would be the opening, I think, for Drake London to, maybe have the Christian Watson, Traylon Burks, rookie kick that's, coming for those guys.
London has 7 red zone targets and 5 end zone targets in his past 3 games. So not only should he see more of those targets with Pitts not on the field, and he did last week, he should also see targets everywhere else. This is the perfect time to get him immersed in the Falcons passing game.
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, though, he's about 75% rostered, I think. So is he more of an add, drop, or hold?
Hold
I think
minimum.
He's an add and a hold. I think if you are seeing him available, depending on what your receiving core looks like and injuries, at other positions, then he's certainly somebody that you can consider adding. If he's on your team, I don't know why you would drop him at this point with an opening now to hopefully have him improve. So, while it's been frustrating, if you've been starting in the last 2 games, you've gotten at least some reward. So that's the hope, that more production going forward. They're not going to change their offense.
But
so
in a vacuum or in a blanket, would you drop Drake London for Latavius Murray?
Yes.
If he's my worst player on my bench, absolutely.
How about for Greg Dortch?
If I needed a 1-week replacement to save my playoff life, yes, I would rather have Greg Dortch than Drake London.
I wouldn't do it in non-PPR.
Another tight end, Jamie, I don't know that you put him on the list. Taysom Hill. They seemed intentionally to really get him involved last week. I was reading about it yesterday. He had 9 carries. He was in a lot. They kept taking Dalton off the field. And they're not happy with their quarterback situation. They were thinking about making a change to Winston, but instead they went with this sort of hybrid thing. So just curious if you guys think maybe Taysom Hill is back in the picture. He's 56% rostered in CBS Sports leagues.
I mean, I guess if you want to go that route, but they're playing the 49ers this week. So good luck to anybody trying to buy into Taysom Hill.
Okay. Offensive line news. I won't go through everything, but the big stuff is Ronnie Stanley, the left tackle for the Ravens. Hopefully not too bad there. Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle for the Vikings, is not going to play this week. He has a concussion. The Giants lost 2 offensive linemen on Sunday. Don't know the severity, but they have a Thursday game. The Patriots lost 2 offensive linemen on Sunday. David Andrews looks like could be pretty serious, and they have a Thursday game. And there are a ton of defensive injuries. I won't get into all of it. Let's see. The Giants really stood out. They got really beat up. The Chargers had a couple of key players go out. And we can leave it. Oh, and Atlanta lost a defensive tackle, Taquan Graham. He's on IR. So that makes things better for the running backs going against them, and that would be Washington this week.
Okuda's not playing for the Lions on Thursday, is he?
I would assume no. I mean, he left with a concussion and is playing Thursday, so probably not. Do we need to have a fab discussion here? What do you do? Okay, here's my fab discussion. If you know you're making the playoffs, do you spend on Latavius Murray or do you save it for hopefully something more appealing that comes down the line?
I would probably direct the conversation more toward Pirine. I know where you're going because Murray has more long-term appeal, but clearly he's not as available. So, I think if you're talking about somebody who's widely available, it's probably a different conversation because most of your league is now trying to get him. So, I mean, if you want to say 10-team league, Latavius Murray, do you want to spend money on him? Probably so if you're, looking to shore up your depth. I mean, a lot of leagues, I know for me, the leagues where I'm going to the playoffs, I have a few teams that are loaded, but, most of them are just, my starters are good and my backups have been guys that I'm cycling through with the hope that they improve. So I'll probably spend a little bit more on Latavius Murray in those situations. But yes, I think if you're at the point where you're desperate to get in, this is the type of a player that you just spend the rest of your fab on because why not?
And that's the problem. If you're one of those teams that's playoff bound and you just I just need an extra running back on my bench. What are you willing to spend for that type of a running back? You're willing to spend maybe 15%, 20%. Whereas there's going to be somebody in every league that'll just shove their chips in on Latavius Murray. And so don't overspend to get Murray. Let the person who needs him make that happen. I'm not saying don't put in a fab bid on him, but just make it something that's fairly reasonable for you.
And obviously we don't know everybody's league's situation, but all I can see is the roster percentages for CBS leagues. Now, as we alluded to at the start of the show, our leagues are a little bit different than some of the other leagues, which is, our site, is a little bit different than other sites. But, depending on who's available in your leagues, there aren't a lot of guys available that fall into the must start category or must flex start category that are out there. Isaiah Spiller, maybe you can make an argument for. There's still a lot of leagues where Alexander Madison's available. But how many situations can we see a starting running back go down and there's a guy that's out there that's going to have long-term appeal? Samaje Perine, sure. He's now in that category. But how many situations?
He doesn't have long-term appeal, right? I mean,
we don't know. But I mean, just extending it a little further than that. If Mixon has another injury that could be worse in a week or two. So when you're looking at these situations, do you want to get Cam Akers, that type of guy, stepping into the lead role in a crappy team? Latavius Murray stepping into the lead role on a little bit more of a crappy team, or a little bit less of a crappy team, but at least you've seen production. Mm. So there's various degrees of how this example plays itself out. Like Deontay Foreman goes down, right? Chuba Hubbard's available in a lot of leagues. Is that a good situation? I would say it's probably comparable to Latavius Murray, right? Probably a little better than Cam Akers. So there are those type of situations out there. What I'm getting at is like this may be the best chance for you to get somebody that can have 3 to 5 weeks of good production. And when I say good production, he's got to score.
Yeah, like 10 non-PPR points on a good week, something like that. This is also a good time let's say you've got Josh Jacobs and you want to just handcuff him, you're going to the playoffs. Get Zamir White while he's cheap if you don't have him already.
Sure. I mean, James Cook is starting to show flashes. He should be rostered. That's why he's on this list.
Definitely.
Isaiah Spiller, that's why he's on this list. I mean, you know what to get. If Madison's still sitting out there, you know what he's capable of doing. So there's going to be a lot of scenarios. It's just a matter of like to what heights these scenarios are going to be. And at what point do they become viable options for you? Like how I'm hesitant to say drop AJ Dillon with the chance of Aaron Jones getting hurt. You're not starting AJ Dillon. Same thing with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt stinks on his own. But should something happen to Nick Chubb, he'd be the most added player by far.
Perfect example. If you're just not going to start Latavius Murray, if you don't need him, I don't think I'm going to drop Kareem Hunt for him. Because if Chubb gets hurt, Kareem Hunt is going to be better than Latavius Murray.
Latavius,
Murray, I mean, I think so anyway. He has been really bad running the football. Is it his fault? Is it the line? I don't know. But one way or another, you're talking 3.3 yards per carry and a long of 14 yards. So I guess we need to know how you value Latavius Murray. So how would you rank him rest of the season? I'll give you 3 players. Tell me how you'd rank Latavius Murray with these guys. Then we can go even deeper. But Latavius Murray, Miles Sanders, Deontay Foreman. How would you rank them?
Sanders, Foreman, Murray.
Agree.
Okay. How about Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert? Would you rather have Murray than either one of them?
No.
I don't think. Definitely not Wilson and probably not Mostert either.
So we're talking about a number 2, low-end number 2 running back, basically.
Maybe even a high-end flex.
Oh, at best, he's a number 2. I mean, you're when we had this conversation on HQ, I believe Heath said it appropriately. Like he's a poor man's James Conner at this point. You're just hoping for 20 plus touches. You're hoping he falls into the end zone. You're hoping for, the work in the passing game to be, something that will sustain him on days where he's running crappy, like he's getting 17 carries for 49 yards. So like you said, Adam, they've been throwing to their backs. There's still an absence of Jerry Jeudy right now. The tight end position hasn't exactly ascended to the place we were hoping for with Greg Dulcich. So I mean, Russell Wilson's running for his life and dumping the ball off. So it's a benefit to Latavius Murray. So I don't want to sell him short. I mean, he's certainly going to give you production, but it's going to be ugly production. And that's kind of where Connor's been.
Yeah. He's a must add. I just, just the thought that if you don't absolutely need him, you might not want to spend all of your fab on Latavius Murray, because there could be a Zamir White or something that comes along later that might be a better 1-week player for you. When you get into the playoffs, you're competing against maybe 3 other teams, maybe 1 other team for the players, and there could be one just must-have guy. It could be a different position, and you want to have the fab left.
Someone will be there. We're
right.
definitely going to hit on somebody later in the year.
Happens every year, right?
Fab for. Yep.
Okay, let's talk about shallow leagues and deep leagues, and then we'll kind of we'll get into just the waiver wire. But for the players that we're not really going to talk about on this show, Pacheco, I mean, he's so rostered in CBS leagues, 92%. But you guys said you'd rather have him than Latavius Murray, right?
Yep.
So that puts Pacheco in perspective. But who are some of the guys, Jamie, that might be unavailable for most of our listeners, but available for the shallower leagues or the ESPN or Yahoo leagues that that people need to go get?
I usually look at, for our leagues, 85% or fewer. So at quarterback, the 2 that I saw, and they're not pretty for week 12, but at least they're serviceable. Derek Carr scored 21 or more points in 3 straight games. Seahawks have given up production 3 of the last 4 weeks to opposing quarterbacks, so he can help you in a pinch. And Deshaun Watson should be rostered at this point with 1 game remaining until he's back. So that's the quarterbacks. The running backs, you mentioned Pacheco. If he's still available, I think he's certainly on the list. And then, you start to talk about guys like Elijah Mitchell, just as the handcuff potential. Michael Carter, he's at 83% rostered. I think they'll get back to being more productive offense if they change quarterbacks. And Damian Harris, I thought, ran well. He's at 81% rostered. He had 2 carries of over 22 yards. So if something happens to Stevenson, clearly he's going to be a must-start guy. So now's the time maybe to pick him back up after dropping him. Receivers a little bit better, just in terms of some guys that could be starters for you. I think, when you get to, Peoples-Jones, as we said, is on the cusp at 64%. But Darnell Mooney, I think, is worth rostering. Drake London is worth rostering. Paris Campbell, as we talked about last week, should certainly be added. He's at 74%. And then Josh Palmer, a lot of people dropped him with the expectation of both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen being healthy. You saw what happened. He has best game with those guys on the field, and then Williams got hurt. So pick him back up as well.
Oh, Josh Palmer. I mean, let's say he's 69% rostered. Let's say he were 64% rostered and he made your waiver wire column, in the main portion of it. Would he be the number one guy to add?
I would probably put him behind Peoples-Jones if you told me Williams and Keenan Allen were definitely healthy, because I don't know if Palmer has that game if Williams plays the entire game. And
it's all about Mike Williams. I mean,
sure.
I know they said Mike Williams' injury wasn't serious, but it is a re-aggravation of a pretty serious ankle injury, and Palmer is just absolute money when he gets 8 or more targets. So you'd still take Latavius Murray and Samaje Perine over him, and Jamie's thinking maybe Peoples-Jones. Dave, how about you? What about Josh Palmer? If he were widely available, where would he?
Yeah, I'd make a play for him. At bare minimum, he remains one of the best bench wide receivers you could have in fantasy, because when one of those two receivers is out, his targets go up. And any receiver that gets 8 targets per game has a chance to be great for fantasy. So I think if he's out there somehow, maybe somebody dropped him last week, you can prioritize him. If we knew that Mike Williams was going to miss more time, he might be the priority of the week. He might be the best guy to get. But until we know that for sure, I think I'd take Peoples-Jones ahead of him.
Okay. As far as tight ends go, Dawson Knox, David Njoku, and Darren Waller are shallower league guys that you can go pick up now. We got a really good question here, a player that was kind of off my radar. Should we pick up J.K. Dobbins? He's 56% rostered. And why don't we just make a note? We'll talk about him when we get into running backs. So Dobbins could be back fairly soon, and we will discuss him. All right, Dave, how about the deep league guys? We're talking, hey, nobody's available in my league crowd.
Right. Why don't we start with the Broncos running backs that aren't named Latavius Murray? It's Marlon Mack, it's Mike Boone. Boone can't help you this week. Marlon Mack might. He's available in 98% of CBS leagues. We've seen the Broncos utilize multiple running backs every game they've played. I think that's going to continue. So Murray will still be the feature guy. He'll be the goal line guy. Clearly, this coaching staff trusts him. I think Mack would be the second guy up. If something were to happen to 32-year-old Latavius Murray, Mack would be the next guy up. Wouldn't be a bad guy to carry on the bench. We talked about Greg Dortch. Not sure how many targets he will get once Marquise Brown is back into the mix, but I think that he's absolutely worth adding and just seeing what happens. He wouldn't be my priority. He's available 97% of CBS Sports leagues. There are not one but 2 Chiefs wide receivers that deserve mentioning, and I think people are going to go after them even in regular leagues, not necessarily the shallow leagues. Justin Watson, 81% available. Sky Moore, 91% available. Both of them saw a ton of playing time. Always good to have a receiver that's getting a lot of playing time in Kansas City. Of course, their playing time depends on who else is healthy in Kansas City's passing game. And at tight end, look, I don't ever feel good recommending Austin Hooper unless, we're just trying to make fun of his last name like we've done for years on this show. Hooper. But 89% available. He's been getting some work in Tennessee's offense. Whether or not that remains, I don't know if I feel great about it. Let's call him a touchdown or bust tight end who's good for 3 catches a game.
Good segment. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're giving away a Paramount Plus month, a month of Paramount Plus. And let's get to 200 likes if we can. We're at 132. Hit that like button. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Okay, everybody, you're dedicated, you're loyal, and it's Thanksgiving week, so we're giving things away. We're thanking you for being part of our show, as always, and we're giving up a free month of Paramount Plus, which is really awesome. There are so many great shows on Paramount Plus, so everybody should check it out. Please comment your Twitter handle here on our YouTube chat. Comment your Twitter handle, and our guy Thomas Schaefer will reach out to you. All right, let's do our top 3 at each position. Oh, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read the names so everybody knows who to get, and then we're just going to go do the waiver wire. Okay? Again, I do this because if you don't have time to stick around to the end, please hit the time codes and jump around to the positions that you need. But Jamie's quarterbacks are Tannehill for this week. Tannehill, Heineke, Brissett, Pickett, Mike White, Bryce Perkins. That's going to be more for 2 QB leagues. Trevor Siemian. I will ask him about Mariota and Dalton. Running backs are Latavius, Pirine, Jerick McKinnon. How about this for Jerick McKinnon? The Rams have allowed 41 or more receiving yards to a running back in 4 of their last 5 games. That's McKinnon's matchup. And then next week, he's got the Bengals, who have allowed 4 catches to a running back in 4 of their last 5 games. So again, it's Murray, Pirine, McKinnon, James Cook, Cam Akers, Isaiah Spiller. The wide receivers are headlined by, would be Josh Palmer potentially, but he's 69% rostered. So it's Donovan Peoples-Jones, Greg Dortch, Treylon Burks. Haven't talked about him yet. Treylon Burks, 28%. Jamison Williams, Sky Moore, Demarcus Robinson, always a good position, right? Nico Collins and some more. Tight ends are Evan Ingram against the Ravens, Juwan Johnson, Austin Hooper, Logan Thomas, Foster Morrow against the Seahawks. That's why he's there. And the Chiefs. Oh, it's a great week for DSTs, by the way. The Chiefs
Fantastic.
Against the Rams. Get them. The Steelers against the Colts. Get them. The Broncos against the Panthers. You can get them. The Dolphins against the Texans. Get them. Don't use your number one claim, I'd say, on a DST because you can get one probably the second time around. And the Bucks against the Browns. And Cameron Dicker, the kicker, is our top kicker streamer. Ryan Suckup, Joey Sly, Jason Sanders, and Matthew Wright. All right, with that said, let's talk turkey. Favorite waiver wire quarterbacks. Jamie, you got Derek Carr and Deshaun Watson in the check to see if available list. If we were ranking Carr with Tannehill, Heineke, Brissett, who would be your top quarterback this week?
Tannehill.
All right, you were high on him last week, and he came through with 23 points against the Packers. 22.
I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. He just finds, like I'll keep saying it, he finds a way to get it done. 2 weeks ago against the Broncos in a tough matchup, he got you 23 fantasy points with Nick Westbrook-Akina. Then he comes back in what, at least on paper, was a tough matchup against the Packers, and he gets you 23 fantasy points. This time it was Treylon Burks, Robert Woods, Austin Hooper. He found a combination that hopefully will work. I mean, this could be a decent trio for what the Titans are as a run-first team to help support Ryan Tannehill. And it's a tough matchup on paper again. But again, I think you just look at it. He's played 7 healthy games. 4 of those, he scored at least 20 fantasy points. It would not shock me if he's at 20 fantasy points again. So more of a deep league starter for this week because no team's on a bye. And Justin Fields really the only significant quarterback that we might be without. So if I'm the Fields manager, he's the first guy I'm going to get. I switched the order a little bit. I put Brissett second because I think just he may go out with a bang against the Bucks.
Yep.
And I like his situation a little bit better than Heineke. Heineke, when I first gave you the list, was more long-term appeal as opposed to short-term appeal. And, Brissett has done some things with his legs lately. He's scored at least 18 fantasy points in 3 games in a row. And the Bucks have actually allowed 6 of 7 quarterbacks to score at least 19 points. So we're not talking about a guy I think that's going to be a significant contributor. But if you are the Fields manager looking for at least a 1-week replacement, Brissett could be a pretty decent option for you. And then I actually put Pickett ahead of Simeon as well. He's just right now missing the second touchdown. The Colts numbers against quarterbacks are a little bit weird because, as we've talked about, their competition hasn't exactly been great. And it's been more running quarterbacks that have had success against the Colts as opposed to guys throwing for multiple touchdowns. But Pickett has at least 37 yards on the ground in 2 of his last 3 games. So hopefully he can get some production with his legs and maybe find that second touchdown, which will be great. If he does, I think he's a decent option as well. But Heineke's not awful. I mean, the Falcons have been bad against opposing quarterbacks all season, allowing 21.1 points per game to the position. So hopefully Heineke throws the ball a little bit more. He's just combined for 28 points in his last 3 games. They're using their run game so well.
So Tannehill was number 1, and Jamie mentioned it's a tough matchup on paper. They're playing the Bengals, who are 4th best against quarterbacks. There's only one quarterback that's scored more than 18 points, and that is Jacoby Brissett, who had a rushing touchdown. But if you look at the Bengals, it's tough to really know how good they are. They have played incredibly easy competition. They did do well against Lamar Jackson. They knocked Tua out in the first half. But the wide receivers they've faced, the quarterbacks they've faced, they have been, blessed this year. So that keep that in mind. Would you start any of these waiver wire guys over Kirk Cousins against the Patriots on Thursday?
What time is that game?
Oh, crap. It's at 8:20. But nobody's going to be watching. They're all going to be eating dinner.
Tannehill for sure.
Wow.
Brissett for sure.
Wow.
And Pickett for sure.
What? Over Cousins?
Yeah, I don't trust him. That is, if Darrisaw doesn't play, forget it.
I don't think Darrisaw's playing. It's hard to feel good about Cousins.
He's been ruled out.
Yeah, so it's hard to feel good about Cousins. I would start Cousins over those quarterbacks as of now. Tannehill's the only one that I think I might give the nod to. Who's safer to get you 20 fantasy points? Maybe it is Tannehill, but I think Cousins has more upside.
Okay. I'm surprised. Such a detour here, but I'm surprised that Treylon Burks is Treylon Burks. In case people tune out before we get to him, is Treylon Burks a must-add player?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Kenny Pickett, look, George Pickens dropped that. I think it was going to be about a 45-yard touchdown late in the game, and if he doesn't, he has a huge game. Maybe this offense starting to click, maybe a little bit. So we lost Fields. Looking for some upside. Pickett's got upside, right? We got downside for sure, but Dave's technically not feeling it.
No, I mean, he's got it. The problem is that there are other quarterbacks I think you can feel better about. And if we're just going week to week with the position, which you should be outside of Tannehill, then you don't have to make Pickett a priority.
I'm not saying you have to make him a priority. I was just trying to make a case for him. All right, so
look, it's not easy to find a quality replacement option for Fields in the majority of our leagues. You might be able to find somebody better. There could be other options available, but in the numbers that we deal with in terms of roster percentage, once you get past Tannehill, who's at least giving you consistent production, when you're talking about Brissett versus Pickett versus Heineke versus these guys, you are looking for upside. So I'm with you, Adam. I think Pickett has shown, coming off the bye, he's played much better. And I think it's also Pickens is establishing himself as a legitimate threat. You have Pat Freiermuth establishing himself as a legitimate threat. And if they can ever figure out what's going on with Deontay Johnson and Pickett, then maybe we're looking at a huge game for him. So I like the setup for Kenny Pickett taking on the Colts in a primetime game.
Okay, if you're in a 2QB league, would you rather have Mike White or Joe Flacco? Definitely Flacco. It's definitely I saw it, but it's definitely going to be Flacco if they make the change.
I just think that's the most logical thing if you're the Jets, because what are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to accomplish somebody who may have upside, or are you trying to get stability? Because if you're trying to get upside, it's still Zach Wilson. So Mike White might be the better of the two in terms of what upside is, but Flacco is the more stable of the.
I'm sorry. I really don't want to talk too much about this. I want to talk about wide receivers in a bit, but would you prioritize a Jets quarterback, Bryce Perkins, or Trevor Siemian in a 2QB league?
Jets quarterback.
Okay.
Do you know that Joe Flacco in 3 starts has more passing touchdowns than Zach Wilson in 7?
Yeah, it's true.
Probably has
2 300-yard games as well.
Do you know that, though, Zach Wilson is averaging a full yard per attempt more than Joe Flacco? The only thing Flacco did well was throw 50 times a game.
Right.
But
he threw short a good amount of the time, too. 2 of his 3 games, he had an ADOT under 5 yards, which is what Mike White would do. That's why I think Flacco probably is the best option for the Jets, is that he's got experience and he's going to manage the game just as well as Mike White would, but he's probably got a stronger arm at this point.
Okay, last question on quarterback. Any interest in Mariota against the Commanders or Andy Dalton against San Francisco?
Double no.
Not really. Mariota is intriguing because of his legs, but I think that's a tough matchup against Washington. Their defense has certainly played fantastic of late. And Dalton, I still think, is on the verge of getting benched if he has a bad performance at some point during the game. And if Jameis Winston's healthy, he could get benched before the game.
Yeah, it's just Mariota, 19.7 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 games. So you'd take Brissett over Mariota this week?
I would.
This week, yes.
All right, let's go to running backs here. Not sure there's a ton to talk about. Thankfully we've covered a lot of it, but we should talk more about McKinnon for sure. How about all right, the shallow guys: Elijah Mitchell, Michael Carter, Damian Harris, maybe Pacheco if you're on a different website. But it's Latavius Murray.
There are a lot of guys if you're on a different website. So.
Yeah, Latavius Murray, Samaje Perine, Jerick McKinnon, James Cook, Cam Akers, Isaiah Spiller. I guess. Who are you ranking higher this week, Latavius Murray or Samaje Perine? Unfortunately, he has to face the freaking Titans. We're so good on defense. And let's assume right now that Mixon's out. If Mixon's out, who are you ranking higher this week, Murray or Pirine?
Pirine by a few spots.
Agreed, especially in PPR.
Ugh, the catches could be so big. And if he gets to play another game as a starter, it's the Chiefs who give up the third most receiving yards per game to running back. They are getting better there.
How about the Bengals with a 2-game stretch against two teams that they weren't supposed to beat in the playoffs?
Oh, last year?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Titans and the Chiefs. Yeah, it's great games. I mean, these are very excited for these games. But yeah, I mean, the matchup for Pirine is really bad. Only 2 running backs have scored a touchdown against the Titans. Barkley in week 1, Dameon Pierce caught a touchdown in week 8. They have just been smothering running backs. They have given up 5 or more catches to 7 running backs this season. So that is good. But
I think the only way Murray is better is if he scores, because I don't think Pirine will score.
Where do you think Pirine comes out in your rankings by the end of the week? By Thursday?
By the end of the week, he'll be right. I mean, I have him ranked right around 20. He's like, in that range.
I have him 28th in non-PPR. He'll be a tad higher in full PPR.
Heath said on the show yesterday that he was going to have him. I said, is he closer to 12 or 20? He said closer to 12. So he'll be a little bit more optimistic.
Jerick McKinnon, disappointing game. I mean, it's tough to rely on guys who do all of their value is in the passing game at running back, and he had just 1 catch against the Chargers. As I mentioned, the Rams have allowed 41 or more receiving yards to a running back in 4 of their last 5 games. So McKinnon's 48% rostered. And how about Dobbins? Let's throw Dobbins on there. He's 56% rostered. Who would you rather add?
Depends on how desperate I was for a running back this week. If I don't need a running back this week, or if I needed a running back and the only guy that was out there was McKinnon, I would probably just wait on Dobbins and hope that 2 or 3 weeks from now, he's able to participate and help my fantasy team.
McKinnon is now an injury away from being the guy for the Chiefs in all facets. Give me McKinnon all day long over J.K. Dobbins.
All right, that's certainly an angle to take there if you're just looking for upside. James Cook has that upside. He's running well lately, and Nyheim Hines is barely involved.
If you want to talk about a lottery ticket, that's it.
Cam Akers, if Darrell Henderson is ruled out, where would you rank Cam Akers this week against the Chiefs?
Low 30s. I mean, what you got from him last week is probably the best case scenario without a touchdown. He has 2 catches on the season, so it's not like he's going to be involved in the passing game with Kieran Williams, hopefully getting more of a role. And this team stinks. So it's like, 14 for 61. Okay. You get some empty production there. Volume will help him if you're desperate. But, I just can't imagine that this Rams offense is going to all of a sudden turn into anything productive if Stafford doesn't play with the offensive line concerns that they have. And Henderson stunk when he was the guy. So it's just bad all the way around.
You remember, I think it was Leslie Mann. She played Jon Stewart's girlfriend in Big Daddy.
Yep.
Yeah. And at the surprise party scene, Adam Sandler walks in. She's like, "We wasted the good surprise on you." That is how I feel about the Rams running back schedule going forward. Like, we wasted the best running back schedule in fantasy football on the Rams. And it just
maybe helps.
Sure, but
maybe.
Chiefs, Raiders, Packers, Broncos, Chargers in week 17. I think I missed the game in there too, perhaps. But all right, Isaiah Spiller. What about should we pick up Mike Boone in a deep league? Get ahead of it? Is he going to be the passing downs guy? Is he going to be the Melvin Gordon?
I would wait till Saturday to make that move if you wanted to make it at all, because he's not playing this week. He's still on IR.
All right, let's talk about wide receivers here. This is the money position. Check to see if available. Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Paris Campbell. Campbell facing the Steelers this week. They give up the 2nd most receiving yards to slot receivers, although the last 2 slot receivers they faced, Jarvis Landry and Tyler Boyd, had 37 to 42 yards. Josh Palmer, we've already talked about. So the priority list for Jamie is Donovan Peoples-Jones, Greg Dortch, Treylon Burks, Jamison Williams. We'll stop there. Let's talk about let's talk about the top 3. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Greg Dortch, Treylon Burks. Why Dortch over Burks, Jamie?
Oh, if he starts this week, I think you're getting a must-start player in PPR. I mean, you've seen what he's been. The first 3 games of the season, he was 13 or more PPR points without Rondale Moore there. And then he steps in for Moore, and he has 9 catches for 103 yards on 10 targets. I mean, this is the position, aside from DeAndre Hopkins in this offense that you want to be a part of. So, like you said, there's the potential return of Marquise Brown, and what does that mean, and how does it all work together with Colt McCoy? Could be ugly, but I think, the hope would be is that they stick Brown on the outside. They keep their slot receiver, whether it's Moore or Dortch, being that guy. And that's a place where Colt McCoy or Kyler Murray continue to live. So I think there's more upside for this week alone. This is one of those. So like Pirine better than Murray for this week, but Murray clearly got more long-standing appeal. If you want to go the same route with those two guys at receiver, I get it. If you want to say Burks has more long-term appeal than Dortch, 100%. But, if you're just looking for who can help you this week and help you win this week, it's Greg Dortch.
Yeah. And another thing on Dortch is he does have a bye next week. So you would think Rondale Moore would have a good chance at least of playing in week 13 after their week 14 after their week 13 bye. But Greg Dortch, even if Marquise Brown comes back, remember there's no Zach Ertz. And that's the short target they had.
And part of it is I saw some of this last night, which makes sense. The field was wet. And so guy that slips and hurts his groin, how much they want to put him back out there in a bad field condition situation. That makes, made sense to me. So maybe, Moore is not as seriously injured as, the scenario might lead to. So he could return to practice. But, this is a guy that they've kind of handled with kid gloves based on the hamstring injury earlier this season. So wouldn't be surprising if, if Brown is able to play and they just say, okay, like you said, Adam, they wait until their bye week.
Okay. So the top 3 are Peoples-Jones, Dortch, and Burks. Jamison Williams, Sky Moore, Demarcus Robinson, Nico Collins. Dave, you can look at that chunk there and talk about whoever you want. But Jamison Williams, Sky Moore, Demarcus Robinson, Nico Collins. Robinson obviously coming off a huge game, 128 yards. What do you think about the next group?
I think it really comes down to what you want. And DeMarcus Robinson's interesting because he's had this great opportunity for the Ravens in 2 of the past 3 games, and seems like he's going to be their number 1 wide receiver for the rest of the season. But he's so flaky. We don't know if he's going to continue to be 8+ targets a game, or if there's going to come a game, especially once the running backs come back for Baltimore, where he devolves into 4 targets, 3 catches, 32 yards. So I'm not a huge fan of DeMarcus Robinson. I'd rather take the safety of what Nico Collins and Zay Jones offers. Justin Watson and Sky Moore have more upside. That goes without saying. They're in the right place. But if Juju's coming back this week, that hurts those 2. If Kadarius Toney's injury isn't serious, that's going to hurt those 2. Jamison Williams is an awesome stash. If he's healthy and ready to go and fresh legs, that could really add a great element to this Detroit offense. And Detroit's been playing well defensively the last 3 games. And offensively, they haven't been bad. They're clearly moving the ball. So he could be a lot of fun. I think if you're a playoff team and you've got that spot to fill and you don't need Latavius Murray for depth and you don't need a quarterback, I think you go for Jamison Williams, and I bet you get him for less fab than what other players that we've talked about so far. And there's huge potential with him. It's a risk. Could end up busting out. Could end up getting hurt again. But the dude can fly. He's tall. He's lean. He's like Christian Watson, but in theory, because we haven't seen it yet, he's less raw. He should be more refined and ready to play at the NFL level than Christian Watson was when Christian Watson broke out 2 games ago.
Yeah. It just look at how the struggles of Chris Godwin coming off the torn ACL, Michael Gallup coming off the torn ACL, and Jamison Williams tore his ACL in January. Beckham's not even back yet. He tore it in February.
Mm-hmm.
So
we don't know that though.
We don't know what.
That Beckham is not back.
Okay, you're right. He was fully cleared a couple of weeks ago, I guess, according to
Beckham could walk on the field tomorrow for all we know.
Yeah, but just remember, you're not, just downgrade probably what you think of Jamison Williams.
The timeline is actually better for Jamison than comparison to Gallup and Godwin. Those guys
agreed. Yes.
A little longer rest and younger.
We're 11 months removed for Jamison.
You guys feel like Treylon Burks has must-start potential? Do you feel like Jamison Williams has must-start potential?
They both do.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Burks more so. I think both of them more so in think of them as like flexes. If everything is right with Jamison Williams and he gets the type of target volume that we saw Treylon Burks get last week, he'll be better. Just period, end of story. He will be the better fantasy wide receiver. I've had a lot of conflicting thoughts about Burks because he had those 2 deep catches And I don't really want to rely on Burks for that, but you can't deny that the Titans, it's 2 weeks in a row now where they've implemented deep balls in their offense and it's worked for them. And if Burks is going to be their number one receiver and they're going to take some shots downfield on top of giving Burks short area targets, which is what he was known for coming out of Arkansas, then I think he could work his way into must start status. Even in a deeper 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I think he could get there. And I think Jameson could too. Jameson is an awesome lottery ticket because he's just got that deep ball potential and he's a good catch and run guy as well, being added to an offense that needs that. They're not getting that out of DJ Chark. They don't have Josh Reynolds healthy at this point. Everybody knows the potential that Jameson Williams has. Absolutely worth that claim and absolutely worth maybe 10% of your fab, your starting fab, to get him and to stash him and to see what happens.
The thing with Burks, you get a 51-yard catch at the end of the game. Take that out. Still had 6 for 50 on 7 targets prior to that. You throw in the last target, that's 14 targets in his last 2 games, and that's after a 4-game absence with a toe injury. We don't know where he would have been had he played all those games. Had he been building towards something. This is a team I think that you're seeing evolve, which is nice to see because I think they realize after a couple of failed playoff runs that they can't just rely on Derrick Henry to get them where they want to go. It's a great defense. It's a great run game. They need to have that next element. And so, does Treylon Burks provide that for them? He's the best bet. Robert Woods is also worth a look. He's got 14 targets his last 2 games too. So deeper leagues is not a horrible situation to pivot back to him because they're trying. They're trying to throw the ball with a little bit more regularity, which is, I think needed for their long-term goals.
I guess it needs to be said that Burks over Williams if you can only get one of them, right?
I mean, Jameson may not play for another 3 weeks. It's just they open the window. Right. So you're talking about. I'm sorry,
Burks over Williams. Yeah.
I'm just making sure.
So all right, let's finish up here. Jamie, real quick, give me your 30-second thoughts on the Chiefs wide receivers, because there are a lot of moving parts here.
I'll lean towards Sky Moore, assuming everybody's out. Assuming no Juju, no Juju, and no Tony, because Hardman's out for 4 games or 3 more games. I would lean towards Sky Moore over Justin Watson and MVS. I don't know what the hell's going on with MVS. That was just a disaster. 1 catch for 18 yards.
That's MVS.
Moore had more targets. Moore has more upside. I hope that he's now the Hardman Tony fallout. The guy that's going to be sort of the gadget player for them as well. So Watson, I think, could have the huge potential play. Big play capabilities. He has that. He's shown us that. But Sky Moore, I think, is going to get more targets. So I'll lean toward that.
And do you guys think Demarcus Robinson could become a truly reliable number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, or is he just going to be kind of boom or bust?
No, I think Dave laid it out right. I don't think he's going to be reliable in that sense. So that's something that you should remove from your vocabulary when it comes to really any Ravens receiver for the rest of the season. But he's clearly become the de facto number 1 guy, number 2 in terms of passing option, because Mark Andrews is going to be the best guy there. But Devin Duvernay not evolved into that guy. I don't think Deshaun Jackson evolves into that guy. I don't think they have that guy on their roster. And so by default, Lamar Jackson's connection with Demarcus Robinson in 2 of the last 3 games is something to buy into. So as a number 3 receiver, I think you can take the chance on starting him this week.
Are you excited to add any of the following players? Excited to add Nico Collins, Mac Hollins, Julio Jones, Zay Jones. Very rhymey here. Nico Collins, Mac Hollins, Julio Jones, Zay Jones. Jones rhymes with Jones, right? Richie James.
Jones.
Excited to add any of them, Dave? Nico, Mac, Julio, Zay, Richie James.
Zay a little bit in full PPR as a bench receiver, but he's like waiver claim number 4 this week if I need a wide receiver. So I'm not very excited. Would I take him over Demarcus Robinson, for example? I think I would, but it's not with enthusiasm.
Okay. And Nico Collins, just want to point out his playing time has really increased. He's been over 77% of the snaps in 4 straight healthy games. He was not doing that earlier on in the season. All right. Tight ends. Dawson Knox has a great matchup this week at Detroit. And David Njoku didn't play much last week, but you can still hopefully buy into him facing the Bucs, who are 25th against tight ends. They've been kind of up and down. Darren Waller, you can stash. Jamie, are you excited to add Evan Ingram this week? Juwan Johnson, Austin Hooper, Logan Thomas, Foster Morrow. I feel like it's kind of a crappy week, but what do you think about these guys? You have them Ingram, Juwan Johnson, Austin Hooper, Logan Thomas, Foster Morrow.
It's definitely a crappy week. I think you look at Ingram and just hope that what he was doing prior to the bye week is something that, is sustainable coming off the bye week. Not an easy matchup, like you said, against the Ravens, but, at least the targets have been somewhat consistent. Juwan Johnson, you're hoping he finds the end zone, so when you're talking about tight under bus type of guys right now, he's the leader in the clubhouse over the last month. And then Foster, how do you pronounce his last name?
Morrow.
All right, Foster Moreau. When he's taking on the Seahawks, you can take a look. You take a look at I thought you were going with the game of the week music.
No.
It's
that's only me.
You're based on the matchup there because Seattle has been so bad against tight ends. So, he was a huge disappointment against the Broncos, but that's a tougher matchup. The Seahawks not exactly the same thing.
Yeah. No. Okay. No Taysom Hill love.
You can.
Well, the article I read was on ESPN.com. I didn't even realize it. I didn't realize just how much he got in there. He had 9 carries. So it just seems like they're going to make.
At what point of the game were those 9 carries?
I think sprinkled in throughout. I you know what? Like, I want to check Andy Dalton's snap count. I don't usually check quarterback snap counts because, they usually play about 100%.
They're going to get destroyed by the
Andy Dalton played 70% of the snaps. He was off the field for 30% of the snaps. I mean, they were intentionally getting Taysom Hill more involved. It's such a bad week for tight end. People are going to be desperate. So I just want to throw the name out there, but okay, I understand. You couldn't have more downside than Taysom Hill.
It's such a bad week by comparison for tight end.
I think so. I think we've been more excited about guys.
Is Pitts.
Oh, I just meant the waiver wire tight ends. Not the all tight ends. I meant the waiver.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's normal. I feel like there have been weeks where, it's funny. The last 2 weeks, David Njoku's been more available, and I've been excited about him, and he's not played and had a terrible game. So,
I wouldn't worry about that though. That's first game back with the high ankle sprain.
Yeah, he played something like 35% of the snaps.
I was encouraged while he did not play to his level of normal production or even playing time. There was the one catch where he tried to leap over jump over the defender. So
he loves to leap. He's a leaper.
But that shows me that he's probably back, and that was the knock the rust off game.
Dave, any thoughts on tight end this week?
None that are any different than what we've talked about. Yeah, very fun. It doesn't work unless it's the actual game of the week. I think Ingram and Juwan Johnson are the most interesting.
It's the tight end of the week, yeah.
It's the tight end of the week. Yeah, who would you prefer?
You need a sad song, not a happy song for tight end of the week this week. Ingram over Juwan Johnson, but both are low upside tight ends, preferably in PPR.
Yeah, I'll take Juwan in non-PPR.
I thought about, I don't think I'm going to have the courage to do this, but recording an acoustic version of the game of the week with my guitar. It's the game of the week. Like, just getting very somber, but
any opportunity for you to sing.
Yeah. And play. All right. DSTs. We love it. So Randy Newman would love the DSTs this week. The Chiefs, the Steelers, pretty random. The Broncos, the Chiefs get the Rams probably without Stafford. They're getting a lot of sacks lately. The Steelers get the Colts. They are a layup every week. The Colts are a good matchup. The Broncos get the Panthers, another great matchup. The Dolphins get the Texans. Every DST has done well against the Texans this year. And the Buccaneers get the Browns. You should be able to find a good DST off waivers. Cameron Dicker, Ryan Suckup, Joey Sly, Jason Sanders, Matthew Wright at kicker. And
want some IDPs?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Jawan Bentley, linebacker for the Patriots. He's had 10 and 9 tackles in each of his past 2 games. He's the best one that I can find. In our IDP leagues, Jaron Kearse, defensive back for the Cowboys, he's had like 4 good games that have been productive for leagues where tackles count. I'd go get him. Looks like Will Harris is going to continue to have a role in the secondary for the Lions, and Rodney McLeod back in the starting lineup for the Indianapolis Colts. Wily veteran who's been giving you decent points in IDP leagues, I'd go after Will Harris or J-Ron Curse first. Curse ahead of Harris.
Let me
And
do
Marcus Williams also could return soon for the Ravens, so that's another guy to keep an eye on.
Let me do the drop-o-meter real quick here. DJ Moore.
He's droppable. I'd like to see how he plays with Darnold or when Walker comes back.
It's so funny. It's like I'd like to see how he does with Baker. I like to see how he does with PJ Walker. I like to see how he does with Darnold. I like to see him on
I don't want to see him with Baker anymore. I've had enough of that.
I like to see him on a new team already.
Yeah. Darnell Mooney.
I'd like to see him with Patrick Mahomes.
Don't drop Darnell Mooney. Allen Robinson, 86% rostered.
7.
I think he's definitely droppable. I'd drop him before Moore.
Tyler Higbee.
Who has a worse quarterback?
Depends on who the quarterback is for the Panthers. Higbee's droppable in non-PPR.
Yeah.
How
that
about
4 for 45 is going to win you a week one of these weeks.
James Robinson, 90%.
I'd hold through the quarterback change.
Agreed.
Greg Dulcich.
I'd hold through the quarterback change.
Ingram or Dulcich?
Ingram.
I'd move to Ingram. Probably Juwan Johnson too. Yeah.
Over Dulcich. Okay.
Yeah.
We got a couple minutes left. Quick thoughts on San Francisco 38, Arizona 10. Jimmy Garoppolo with 33.4 fantasy points.
You know that whole storyline about who would be left out? No one.
Juwan Jennings.
I mean, what did Ayuk have? 4 targets. He caught two catches. They were both touchdowns. That's how everyone gets involved, right?
Nailed a photographer in the where with the football.
I did not see that. I have got to see that. Wow.
On the first touchdown.
Right in the cylinder of sensitivity.
I think it was first touchdown.
All right, what are any big takeaways here?
I mean, it's now 2 weeks of McCaffrey not having huge games because Elijah Mitchell is there. So take that for what it's worth.
So I made a great trade in the IDP league.
Oh, and you
still
Aaron
love
Jones
that.
I traded him for Aaron Jones and Brady. I was a genius.
Goodness.
I told you at the time. I said when Elijah Mitchell comes back, they're going to split carries evenly.
They did not.
I mean, the only thing McCaffrey was missing was touchdown.
They did split carries, but not touches and not playing time. With Garoppolo in the game, McCaffrey still played 70% of the snaps.
One of the 49ers beat writers say that Kyle Shanahan took a page out of Bill Walsh's book, which I think it makes a ton of sense, is throw to score, run to win. They were very pass heavy in the first half and very run heavy in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good for Mitchell if you expect them to win.
It's just you still look at this team and you say there are too many mouths to feed. I mean, they're not all going to score. Deebo Samuel had 37 yards and a touchdown rushing. He scored on a reverse, basically, or whatever it was.
A little fluky.
Tremendous play, and that's the Cardinals. I mean, look, the Cardinals are bad yards after catch, but that's basically the same thing, right? I mean, they just can't tackle anyone.
Right, you called that.
Yeah, I thought Deebo would have a good game. He had 9 targets. Ayuk only had 4. He scored 2 touchdowns. Kittle, played Arizona. But do you feel any differently about them this week than you did last week?
I don't think you're changing how you're putting them in your lineups. Nobody's benching Deebo Samuel at this point. Nobody is probably benching Brandon Ayuk at this point, coming off the stretch of games that he's had. And then Kittle plays a position where you got to be pretty lucky to have somebody better than him. Maybe you picked up Dalton Schultz after he was dropped earlier in the season, or, somebody, you traded for somebody when Kittle was struggling or banged up early in the year. So, I think you just have to treat it as there's going to be games like we saw 2 weeks ago where both Kittle and Deebo were bad. There's going to be a week where Ayuk is bad. There's going to be a week where probably another week or two where all 3 of them are great. So it's an offense. I think they're the best team in the NFC. And so you look at the way that they're probably going to pummel some teams, the Saints this week in particular. It's going to be an opportunity for all of them to eat. And so hopefully they all get their turkey and sides aplenty on Thanksgiving weekend.
Dave, for the Cardinals, the thing about Hopkins, I don't know if you had noticed, but he's awesome. But James Conner got the goal line touchdown. He only had 2 catches, but there's no way he was going to have a good rush average against the 49ers, but he's gotten a touchdown now in 2 straight games. No?
I don't think he's going to have a good rushing average against anybody except the Chargers, who he happens to play next week. So I'm excited to watch him in that game. He was awful. He had 4 runs of 4+ yards and 5 runs of 1 yard or fewer.
Hey.
Yeah, the offensive line's bad. He's not explosive. He's just physical. You hope he finds the end zone. I do like his chances to be to return as like a top 15-ish running back in PPR this week. So happy to have Connor in my lineup for at least 1 week, and then he goes on by. And yeah, you're right. DeAndre Hopkins, pretty good. Don't see his targets going away, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who the opponent is, no matter what the situation is. Must start fantasy wide receiver. Everybody knew that already. Do they have any other must starts? Kyler, when he's healthy, I guess he would qualify. Marquise Brown, if he gets back into his target share, but that would probably cost the slot receivers / tight ends getting their targets when Brown comes back. That's my prediction, is that Brown goes back to like 8 targets per game. Hopkins gets his dozen. Everybody else gets scraps.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Good show. We'll talk to you tonight. We got a live stream, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there. And then tomorrow with some trade talk and hopefully some schedule talk. And Thursday, normal schedule, except no live stream, no 2 p.m. live stream on Thursday. We will be stuffing our faces. See ya.